Hello, I'm Jennifer White, and I will be discussing polygraph tests and whether they are reliable or not. This is from Chapter 3, Numbers in the Real World, from the In Your World section, and it is question number 28, polygraph arguments. So we've all seen the lie detector tests in the media. They use them tons on talk shows. They're in crime shows, movies, and for the most part, most of us believe that they're accurate and that they're a reliable source. Let's talk about where the lie detector test came from. It was invented in 1921. It was originally called the cardiopneumocyclogram, and it was invented by a part-time police officer out of Berkeley, California, named John Larson. Now, Larson believed that the art of deception could be seen by physical telltale signs, and he thought if we could measure those, then we could determine if a person was lying or not. So he knew that lying would make people nervous. And Larson thought if we could detect changes in a person's breathing patterns or their blood pressure or their pulse rate, then we could determine whether they were lying or not. So like I said, it was originally called the cardiopneumocyclogram. It was actually the press that dubbed it a lie detector test. So by the end of his life, John Larson ended up having his own doubts about his own invention. He said he felt like it was nothing more than a glorified stress detector and that the American public had put too much faith in his machine. Actually, near the end of his life, he actually referred to his machine as sort of like a Frankenstein's monster. So near the end of his life, he had his doubts about it, the validity of the tests as well. Okay, so how does it work? In its current state, what happens is sensors are strapped to the subject's fingers, to their arm, and to their chest. And those sensors report on real-time reactions during an interrogation. So a spike on any of the measurements indicates that the suspect is nervous and supposedly points to the fact that they're lying. The test relies on control questions. So the control questions are generally things that would induce stress in a normal person. Things like, have you ever stolen anything? So they take that as the baseline control question, and then the interviewer will ask more specific questions that are related to the crime. And the difference in the two lines of questioning is what gets measured and determines if a person is lying or not. But is it accurate? Well, it depends on who you ask. According to the American Polygraph Association, the test has about a 90% accuracy rate. If you ask some psychologists and even some police officers, many of them say the test is biased toward finding liars, and it has about a 50% chance of hitting a false positive on honest people. The U.S. Supreme Court has issued several rulings on the question of if a polygraph test should be admitted as evidence in a criminal trial. And they say since there is a risk of false positives and there's no concrete evidence that it is 100% accurate, they decided to leave it up to each individual state to decide whether they would allow lie detector test results to be admissible in court. So 23 states say yes, they will allow those in court. Oklahoma is not one of them. A lie detector test is not admissible in a court in the state of Oklahoma. There are a few things that they can for sure help you with, though. They can help make people frightened, and that can kind of lead to a confession. They can be used by police to intimidate someone into a confession. But once again, how accurate are they? That's kind of hard to figure out. There is no real answer to that. Some people say 90%, some say 70%, Some say 80 to 90%. The National Association of Legal Professionals estimated around 80 to 90%. Most psychologists and police officers say it's about half and half, about 50%. Of course, the American Polygraph Association says it's 90%, and their critics say 50%. Of course, talk show hosts consider it to be 100% accurate. So basically, the results are inconclusive on this question. We don't know how accurate polygraph tests are, but we do know that you cannot use them in a court of law in most states. And even the 23 states that do allow them, they have specific rules and stuff as to whether it's valid or not, whether they can use it or not in court. So that's it. Thank you for watching, everyone.